I call the October 26, 2019 meeting of the Portsmouth City Council, which is a work session, to order. And Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Battle?
Here.
Mr. Clark?
Here.
Mr. Glover?
Here.
Mrs. Lucas-Burke?
Here.
Mr. Moody? Ms. Simmons? Mayor Rowe?
Here. Dr. Patton?
Yes. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of City Council. This evening, Mr. Bob Baldwin will come forward to provide information on the relocation of various public safety offices from the Civic Center to a new location and the timeline for the relocation project. The second presentation, Mr. Holt W. Butt III will provide an update on the South Norfolk Jordan Bridge and its revenue performance from 2013 to present. Mr. Baldwin.
Thank you, Dr. Pat.
Is he doing this?
No slides. And good evening, Mayor Rowe, Vice Mayor Lucas-Burke, members of council. There are no slides for this presentation. Just want to give you an update on the relocation activities regarding the Civic Center complex. As you're all aware, primarily involved in the move are members of the police department and also including the Portsmouth Magistrate's Office. From the police department, that includes their uniform patrol, property, evidence, and a number of other units they have assigned to that building. We've been working very closely with Chief Green and the police department staff, as well as the Chief Magistrate, Mandy Owens, and Regional Supervisor Thomas Cahill, to make sure that all their needs are met in terms of space when they move. And also, in particular with the Magistrate's Office, they have a requirement that their services not be interrupted. They're a 24/7, 365-day service, so we're working to make sure they can transition without losing regular operations there. The location we are working on is at 700 Port Center Parkway. It's right down just past the courts building. If you're going down that direction on your right-hand side, basically. The building we're looking at is 30,000 square feet of what we would describe as flex space. It's a mix of office and storage, and that meets the need, in particular the police department. As we mentioned before, they will have they have quite a large amount of storage needs for property, evidence, and records. All that be relocated to that building. The current status, we've been working with the owner of the building and the design of the interior renovations, getting the floor plan laid out to meet the needs of the intended users. The architects are working on the design work. We expect that work to be completed by mid-December. We are still at this time in negotiations on some of the final details of the lease. We've been working very closely with the city attorney's office and getting the lease documents straight with the landlord. Again, as I mentioned, the interior layout plans are due to be completed by mid-December. We anticipate construction in the building to begin first of the year, right around the beginning of January. It's a 4-month construction process from beginning to end, and we will hopefully be making a phased moves into the building. So certain aspects of the building's in 3 or 4 sections. And as a section is ready to move into, for example, if the storage areas are ready to move some of their materials into the storage, they can be moved in there as we move along. So hopefully by the end of that 4-month process, the entire building will be complete, and the occupancy either completed by that time or very shortly thereafter, whatever kind of moves we have to make. I think that pretty much covers. If you had any questions about that.
Questions?
So, are we buying the building?
No, we are leasing the building. The plans are to lease the building.
We're going to lease the building.
Yes, sir.
Space.
That's consistent with a previous report that you all have given us.
That's correct.
Right.
That's correct.
So go ahead.
Well, I don't understand what consistency with what got to do with it. Every time we talk about a project, we always want to validify it. That's consistent with Norfolk and Virginia Beach and those folk under the same strain.
I don't-
we're into a contractual agreement, and have we signed off to give them permission to negotiate? We did?
Yeah, that's what I said, consistent. When I'm not talking about consistent with Virginia Beach and Norfolk. The city managers reported before that this was the alternative. We nodded and said, yes, let's move forward on the lease of this building. So that's the consistent part of it.
Yes, but I'd like to know the parameters of all of it before we are talking complete project, and we haven't even finished negotiations. We have to negotiate and look over but we are talking about as if it's already been spun. When you say, oh, and everything will be done in 4 months, but we haven't discussed any cost or anything like that.
We appropriated the money at the last meeting.
Well, yeah, 400,
475.
75.
Yes.
So is that the total cost?
That is for us, Mr. Battle, as Mr. Baldwin has indicated, for where we are in the phase right now. It is at the design phase. It has to have the build out. We have provided with.
Well, I understand all of that, but I don't want to move into a project piecemealing. If we go into a project, I would rather that we get a picture of the complete project rather than to throw money into the project without knowing the total amount that we're going to be involved in putting in the program. You understand what I'm saying?
I hear you, and
because
we're going
that's
to get
good
there.
business sense.
We're working to get there. As he indicated, we're in the final negotiations with legal and the owner of the building. However, there are things that we must move forward on and not just stop for this part, but the design has to be done, so it will all come together.
I understand
And it will come
that.
back once we finalize that contract.
I understand that, Dr. Patton, but that's
Hold on a
not
second.
good business.
I'm going to ask for quiet behind us. And if you need to talk, please go into the hallway. Paul, excuse me for interrupting. You've got the floor.
That's quite all right. This is like an open book, and we're going from page to page to page. I'm not for putting funds into a situation and hoping that we'll come to an agreement on that particular agreement that we're trying to come together on. That doesn't make sense. That's not a good practice for business. It's not a good practice for doing city business, because we've already said what our vision is and how long it's going to take, and we haven't even finished negotiations. And there we go again with throwing money in something where, are we going to say, well, no, we don't like it, it's too much, this phase of it is too much, and there we are again with $475,000 out in the front, throwing it away. That's just not a good way to do business, and we need to stop and think about what we're doing and consider doing business in a better fashion than that.
Okay, so at least I can understand. Are you proposing that we buy versus lease?
Don't have the money.
I'm proposing that we enter into the negotiations that are gonna give us the front and the back in one picture, rather than we spend $100,000 and then the next phase is, oh, that's $200,000. And then the next phase is, oh, that's going to be $2 million. And then the next phase will say, well, cost overrun is involved now. You see, when we get involved in things like this, we have to put definitive things that we want rather than just fly into a deal and we are not as involved as I think we should be in the negotiations.
Yeah, I got it.
And I just want to kind of back up for a minute, and you can correct me if I'm going in the wrong direction. So what this is this is the public safety building, is that correct?
That's correct.
And so where we are today, we had to create a situation where there was a short-term solution for where we are today with our public safety. And so as a result of that, the ultimate solution, the long-term solution, is to do a public safety project. But right now, where we stand today, this is my understanding, we do not have the funds in-house to enter into that project, so we have to accommodate our public safety folks in the short term. As a result, we found a space that we need to renovate, and we have to renovate it because a public safety building requires specific things. So we have to renovate it to provide those specific things from an operational standpoint so that those folks can do their jobs. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct.
So that's why we're at this position, and based on all of the factors that we're dealing with, I believe this is a prudent way to operate right now, because we can't go forward, we can't leave our folks out there without an adequate place for them to conduct their business.
In addition.
Wait a minute. She's got the floor. You have the floor. I'll come back to you after everybody talks.
Councilman Glover, you kind of iterated my thoughts on the whole thing. So right now, our public safety officers are still in the Sports Hall of Fame building.
They're in the Civic Center.
This is the Civic Center. This is the Civic
Okay,
Center.
because I know that this move is urgent, so my question is, I guess, how soon can they go in, if it's going to be done mid-December?
Well, if we're talking about the move from the folks out of the Civic Center building,
Right.
you have
Right.
approximately 200 personnel assigned to that building, so it's a sizable number. Now, they're not all in the building at one time, they do, shifts. Sure. The goal is, when the construction commences in January, as parts of the building, and again, it'll be in 3 or 4 sections. And so let's say, for example, one section has storage, and they have some things that are, the building's already got storage space in there.
Right.
Small amount of work, we can start to move storage things into the building pretty quickly. Some of it, as you can imagine, with the police department, some of their needs aren't in normal office buildings.
Right.
So we have holding cells. We have storage that's required for evidence that must be under certain climate conditions, or it has to be in certain, we have, those types of things in there. You don't find a building with that. That has to be built into the remodeling of the building for all of those special police department needs, just as with the magistrate's office. There's a list of requirements for that. As that comes along, as soon as the contractor can get those things done, when they're finished and a certificate of occupancy is issued for it, we can begin to move into the building. The plan would be, instead of waiting for 4 months and then moving everybody in at once, we will move as the building becomes available to move.
Okay.
So that's when we describe phasing. We're describing, moving people in as the building becomes available. It's still part of a single lease.
Yes.
But they'll move as the building renovations are ready and the building is certified for occupancy.
Okay, and the lease is 1 year
The
or?
lease will be a 7-year lease.
Okay.
With an option to get out of the lease after 5. And the reason for that time frame was, should City Council elect to move forward and to build a public safety building to put everything in, it's going to take you 3 to 5 years to get that done.
Right.
So this will give you the option to get out of the lease at 5. Part of the way the lease is structured, one of the reasons we did it for the 7 years, assuming for the sake of discussion that you stayed in there for 7, we're amortizing the cost of the building renovations over a 7-year time frame instead of front-loading all of the repairs at once.
Right.
So if you leave the building early, that has one cost to it. If you stay there for full 7 years, it amortizes all the improvements to the building.
Great. Okay, thank you.
All right. I'm going to recognize Paul again, and then Dr. Patton.
And again, key word that you said was we have to. That's no way to go into a business situation having to, or putting yourself in the position that you have to. Now, have to is a very subjective statement, and it's nothing definitive about it. Yes, we have to, but do we have to now? Yes, we have to, but can we do it later? So let's throw that out, because that's not a good business model here. All I'm saying is we all need to do a better job of communicating together so we won't have this discussion in public. You understand what I'm saying?
Not really.
When we move into things like this, I'm not comfortable with them. And when I'm not comfortable with them, it's because it doesn't smell good. The taste test isn't good. Why don't we just put it out for bid? Why do we have to always do something that's pushing us? At every step of the negotiation, we have to. Or we look back and say, well, we've invested that much money, we'll have to go now. Well, we got to do it for 5 years. Well, we're going to sign a 7-year, but we have to do it 5 years. If we leave in 5 years, are there penalties involved? What I'm saying, there are too many parameters, and this is too big of a project for us to conduct in this manner.
Paul, you've stated your position. Let's find out where other people feel about this, okay? Because we do it by consensus. Are you comfortable?
I'm comfortable.
Are you
Yes.
comfortable?
I am.
Are you comfortable? Are you comfortable? I'm comfortable. Appreciate
And
your
just one last
position.
question. So the one last question, the 475 that we allocated last time, that was just some of the build out, some of the
process, yes,
processes.
yes.
So that's not the total, but this is just get us started.
That's correct.
Now, you had a...
Yes, Mayor,
you
I
have the
wanted to
floor.
say that we shared with council at least 8 weeks ago that because of the evidence and paraphernalia that has to be moved, we have had sent to training 8 police officers that will have to be properly suited, monitored by individuals that are qualified, both state and federal, to move such evidence. We've gotten that out of the way. That took a period of time to get that training. So all the time we are continuing to move. We're progressing because the court order mandated that we should
Right.
move and show evidence. And so that's what we are doing. Thanks, Mr. Ball.
Elizabeth, you hadn't had a chance to speak. Okay, Paul.
But there's another one of those words again. We've shared. I want a project where we are not shared, that we are overseeing, and we know exactly what we're getting into from the beginning to the onset before we pull any triggers of finance.
Yes, I understand.
And so shared, you shared, that's the key word.
Yes.
And again, I'm not happy with this business model. It's a poor way to do business, and
Thank you.
I yield.
Let's go to item 2.
All right, and that will be Mr. Button will come forward with an update on the South Norfolk Jordan Bridge.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. I'm here tonight to give you a brief update on the South Norfolk Jordan Bridge, specifically the revenues generated under the negotiated legal settlement a couple years ago. First, for some background on the issue, in January of 2013, the new Jordan Bridge was completed. and the portion of the bridge lying in the city of Portsmouth was assessed as real property by my office. The owner of the bridge protested the assessment on several grounds and made no tax payments during this protest period. On June 9th, 2015, the city treasurer sued South Norfolk Jordan Bridge LLC for real estate taxes owing in the amount of a little over $1 million. South Norfolk Jordan Bridge countersued the city, claiming that the bridge was not taxable under state law, and if it was deemed taxable, the assessment was too high. Ultimately, both parties agreed to settle the case using a payment in lieu of taxes method or model.
And that settlement was memorialized in an agreement
Correct.
executed by both parties. And what year was that?
I believe 2017.
20, yes.
Late 16, early 17, Mayor.
I think before we got on council.
This was 16.
Yeah,
Before you
it was in
Yes.
16.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Mr. Butt,
Yes.
what is our payment in lieu of taxes we receive?
I'm going to get to that.
Good, thank you.
Okay. So the performance to date under this settlement agreement. From the period of January 2013 through September 30th, 2019, we've received a little more than $1.5 million. We've also got South Norfolk Jordan Bridge is currently processing a payment of $69,000, a little more than $69,000, which will be received probably in the next couple of weeks, but certainly by the end of the year. That brings the total we've received since the inception of this agreement to about $1.6 million. The potential real estate taxes generated had the parties not settled this case can only be estimated, but would likely have been approaching or slightly less than the revenues collected to date. So this has turned out to be a good agreement, the way it's worked so far.
Is the payment in lieu of taxes subject to a variable such as volume of traffic?
Next slide.
Oh.
Yes, sir. So going forward, the settlement agreement allows the city to collect 3.5 cents per car of toll revenue, as well as $30,000 per year in flagged accounts receivable through June 30th, 2027. Now, those accounts receivable are bad debts, people that don't pay their tolls, and SNJB goes out and collects those tolls, and we get $30,000 of what they collect. Now, we'll say this, their collection rates are pretty high because they have been approved by DMV to take driver's licenses away if the tolls aren't paid, so.
So they can put DMV stops on.
Correct. So based on current traffic counts, the estimated receivables to the city would be approximately $105,000 per year going forward. I do know that information that came to me today that traffic counts are increasing rather rapidly. So I think this number, 105,000, is a pretty conservative number. And then on July 1, 2027, the per car revenue share would increase to 5 cents, and the flagged accounts receivable annual payment would cease at that point.
Does the term of the agreement expire in 2027?
No,
It just fixes the new number, Mayor.
yes,
5 cents.
and does away with that.
Was this,
Collection thing.
I assume that this was a court-approved agreement because it settled the case?
Correct. That's
So
correct.
any amendments to the agreement would have to be approved by the court?
We'd have to go back to court on it.
And when was this approved?
2016.
2016, I believe it was, late 2016.
Can you go back to the first slide again?
Yes, sir.
what brought about the lawsuit is that the city taxed them. They said, we're not taxable. We took them to court. They countersued, and we came up with this
We
agreement.
came to the table, and part of the reason we came to the table was because of the Aubrey Lane. You know, this was a very important piece of the traffic circle around Hampton Roads, and he wanted this to be settled, so.
And you and Solomon were involved in that. Well, good job.
Correct.
Yeah, Elizabeth.
Yep.
You may not know this answer, but are the traffic counts higher because the toll is lower? I wonder what the toll is going to be January 1st on the,
I don't,
I don't know.
I don't think it's lower.
Versus
I don't think
the
it's lower.
No, it's the same.
Are you answering the question?
I believe so. I believe they've trailed a little bit behind the tunnels, but not much, 10 cents and whatnot. They may not, I know initially they were trailing 10 cents maybe behind the Midtown Tunnel, but that was the first couple of times it went up. I don't know what the current rate is, but I may be able to find out before we make the decision.
Yeah. So the annual payments, do they come annually or monthly or quarterly, or how do they pay us?
Solomon, do you know how those checks are issued? They come to finance.
The payments, I see we get 105,000 annually, but do they come annually, or do we get a quarterly payment or a monthly payment, or?
The receivables have a schedule, as well as the payment amounts have particular due dates that are tracked both in finance and in the city attorney's office, and then we report that data back to the treasurer's office, to the real estate assessor's office. So there is a set schedule. There was a set schedule in terms of
How they pay that.
particular due date.
Because I saw that one on the page where it had, they were still processing a $69,000 payment.
Correct. There's some December 30th due dates, and we have a time period, a month or so to pay. And then there's some July dates, due dates also.
This may be nitpicking, but is it 5 cents per car or per vehicle?
Per vehicle.
Per
Yes.
vehicle.
Can you go back to slide 3? I just wanted my math. I was looking at the other slide after that one. So I just wanted to ask a question. To David said the city had received a total of $1.5 million for the period of January 1 through September. So that was close to, if you do the math, that was close to 6 divided in at about $200,000 a year, somewhere around there?
Yes, sir. Yes. And remember, when this agreement was made, they owed $1 million in
Right.
taxes. So
Sure.
Did they make a one-time payment at the beginning of this?
The Commonwealth made a one-time payment of $1 million.
Okay, because I was.
That was the carrot in the room to resolve the matter. And then there were payments, and so these payments, while you're looking at it, these payments are of several different categories. The receivables, the ongoing per car payments, in addition. And so that's why it doesn't level out to one number precisely.
I got you.
One more question or two. Does Chesapeake get a similar cut on this?
Everything but the receivables.
correct.
When we were in negotiation about this, for those of you who may have been around, the bridge did negotiate a tax-free holiday on the Chesapeake side. For some reason, they may have believed they negotiated one on the Portsmouth side, which they did not.
Okay.
And so the Commonwealth did come in, and when the agreement was struck, it placed Portsmouth in a similar position, but we only get access to the receivables collected, a portion of the receivables collected.
And I was city manager at the time that we started this, and the bridge company, it was the FIG company, said, well, we got a contract with Chesapeake that says it's tax-free. Is Portsmouth in that contract? And that stopped them. Portsmouth was not in that contract.
And then last question, which line item, which part of our budget does this deposit into?
It moves through just like regular real estate taxes, through the regular accounts as it relates to real estate tax.
Thank you.
Question, I just pulled it up on both sites just to see what the tolls were. So just for the two-axle vehicles, the peak for the tunnels is $2.33. The peak for two axles at the Jordan Bridge is $2.45. But when you look at three axles for the heavier vehicles, the peak at the tunnels is $9.29, and the Jordan Bridge is $8.75. So you see, that's why you see more trucks
Right.
going that way, because that's a pretty good savings, which this is now, but the tunnels go up January 1.
Right.
That's not January 1.
No, this is current.
Other questions? Okay, good, thank you. That was very educational. Please.
Go forward. On your agenda tonight, on the city manager's report, there is one item, and it is a grant coming through the city's police department, and it's a collaborative grant from Portsmouth Partnership, and it's adoption of an ordinance accepting a grant from the Portsmouth Partnership Foundation, Cherry Carpet, Hansel Union Consulting, and Total Business Solutions in the amount of $1,000, and appropriating said funds to the FY 2020 Grants Fund for use by the Police Department for health and wellness training. There's only one report back from the November 12th meeting, and during that meeting, council, you requested that the city manager and the city attorney work on the Clean Commission amendment request, and we are in the process, both of us talking about it today, looking to update or bring it back by the December 10th meeting or discussion in the 9th public work session. There's another update which you received, and I'm going to read the update as it pertains to the city audit. It read thusly: with the transition of the city's banking institutions from Wells Fargo to the Bank of America, which is allowing the city more financial investment of credible interest, the reconciliation of these accounts through the city's finance department requires meticulous review. Also, the Portsmouth Public Schools is reconciling, or in the process of reconciling and completing 3 years of grant awards, and they are currently drawing down past state and private grant fund awards in which is time sensitive, and that is their new CFO, who when we last year went back and cleaned up 14 years of CIP, they are addressing that with the grant awards. And also with the reappropriation of the FY19 PPS General Fund, unencumbered funds, and the Portsmouth Public Schools Risk Management Fund request still pending, the city has made a request to the Auditor of Public Accounts for an extension. The new state law section 15.2-2511, which is in effect this year, requires a locality to post a statement on the website stating the delay and estimated time of completion. That has been done, and the letter has been sent. Both Dr. Bracy and I are in communication on the remaining parts, and Mr. Ashby with the Risk Management Fund is working with Mr. Falk. By the 9th of December, it will be coming back before you for you all's approval to move forward.
Any questions on that, or comments? Okay, good.
I'm finished.
Well, this brings us to council liaison reports, and we'll start with Shannon.
Sure. But before that, I did have a question about something we had discussed last night. Can I ask that question now? So last night, we talked about having, we discussed a public hearing on
The 6th.
on the budget recommendations from citizens, like the Christmas wish list. And, I got to thinking about that, and I looked at my notes from the budget last year. We had what's called a community engagement budget forum. And I thought Right, and I thought that was a good forum for engaging the citizens. So I just didn't know what the difference of having that would be versus having an actual public hearing.
Well, it's funny that you brought that up, because we talked about that very same thing.
Okay.
Engagement is a more friendly term, I think.
Okay.
And so they agreed to work together to get that into the.
Okay. Yes, I just thought it'd be different.
Mr. Moody
Is
called.
everybody okay with that?
Yes.
We still have the meeting, we're just changing the
Yeah.
It's going to be the
style
engagement.
maybe, or
Yeah.
name or
Right.
something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Moody called today indicating that he would not be here, and he indicated that he would like to have council to consider that we bring back, and that would be staff bring back for the December 9th meeting, consideration of some engagement like we had before, where there were a survey of questions and things where the audience was engaged. We did not do it last year. And so I said to him, I would bring that forward to
The
you
little
all.
clickers.
The clicker,
Yeah,
yeah.
right.
We call it the clicker, but it's a name for it.
Right.
And with that, I said I would come back, mention it to council, and if that is your desire, we will bring your questions back on the 9th. You can yea or nay the questions, then that would get us ready for the 6th.
Anybody got any problem with that?
Great idea.
I think that puts it in a
Okay.
position.
So we're good?
Yes, sir.
Deborah, you good?
They just took one of my staff members out of here in an ambulance
Oh, my God.
to Maryview. Can I go to check on her?
Hey.
Yes.
I'll get back with y'all about what.
Yeah, let us know, man.
Hope everything's okay.
Have all these give us a report.
You didn't finish.
Thank you, Shannon, for bringing that up. That was very timely.
Well, I had been thinking about it since we left last night, and I just didn't know what the difference was.
Right.
So. But I don't have any liaison reports at this time.
Okay.
I do. This past week, the Parking Authority did hold a meeting. There was 2 new individuals on that board. They did their elections. They voted Pamela Wilkins is the chair, and Judy McGinley is the vice chair. We got some information, a little bit of discussion about the County Street garage. There's been discussion about replacing that for some time. County Street garage. That had been placed on hold because of the unsolicited proposal, but now going forward, more information on that, and we'll probably have more information after the first of the year. The other meeting, Hampton Roads Regional Jail Authority, we met last week as well. Just a quick overview of some of the medical issues they're dealing with. They had 6 temporary detention orders. They currently have 7 pregnant females, 2 are on methadone. We have 20 cancer patients in the facility. We've had 45 transports to Maryview, and these numbers are just for the month of October, now that we're doing monthly meetings. There's 52 transports to Norfolk General, and there was 23 just to other doctor's appointments. But overall, for the month of October, they conducted 1,208 transports. That's everything from medical to court appearances and all the participating jurisdictions, incoming and outgoing. And so that's the number that they're dealing with as far as, and you figure minimum, whenever they're operating a vehicle, they're going to have 2 officers in a vehicle, whether it's a van or a car. They've had individuals hired. In the month of October, there were 10 officers hired. So far in November, there has been 9 hired. From previous hires on December the 11th, there are 4 to graduate from Hampton Roads Criminal Justice Training Academy. On January the 8th, there's 1 that will be graduating from Chesapeake Sheriff's Office Training Academy. That's my report up to date, unless there's any questions.
PRHA had the groundbreaking on November 15th. Elizabeth Simmons and Shannon Glover were there present with me. I spoke on behalf of the council. It was a wet, rainy day, but they had very good attendance. One of the questions that came up out of the meeting, and one of the Miss Ricks is the new consumer on the PRHA, mentioned that there's a bus stop, but there's no covering for it on Deep Creek and Columbia. So there's 2 bus stops right there that service Dale's home and the Lexington, will be the new Lexington Place community. And the bus stops have no covering on it. So I don't know if that's something we need to speak to.
Well, let's do this. Let's ask the city manager to communicate that to
Okay.
William Harrell
Right.
Well,
on behalf of council,
the question, the only question I had, are we talking HRT or?
HRT.
It's HRT.
That's why I wanted to make sure what kind of bus stops we were discussing.
Yes, right.
Thank you.
Is everybody okay with that?
Yes. Okay, that's all I have.
Good. Paul? Speaking of HRT, HRT is going through the process of developing a strategic plan, which is now mandated by the Department of Public Transit and Rail. In fact, they got a huge grant from the state to do this. They're doing 2 models in the state. This is one. The goal for the plan is to get consistency for the backbone, get backbone service. Right now, it's spotty. Service may end at 6 o'clock in Portsmouth, but runs to 10 o'clock in Norfolk. It may not have any service on a Sunday afternoon in Portsmouth, but service in Hampton. So there's a goal to come up with consistent times and apply those to the backbone routes. At the same time, there's a transformative committee that's made up of both primarily people from the community. But Mayor Tuck and I chair that, and it goes hand in glove with the strategic plan. It feeds into the strategic plan. What's been found is that when HRT is looked at among 15 other nationwide transit systems of similar size, our cost is very low, the second lowest. But we're the only system that doesn't have a dedicated source of revenue that's outside the local government, where HRT has to rely on the fare box, the federal funds they get for operating, and then the rest of the money is made up from the cities.
Right.
And then the cities say, well, gee, we got to balance our budget this year without raising taxes, so we're going to whack what we give HRT by pick the number.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the goal is to get backbone service. And our transportation planner, who you met, Carl Jackson, has been heavily involved in this, and he's doing a great job. Any other? Okay, we do have a need for a closed session. Do we have a motion to go in closed session?
I move to go into closed meeting A pursuant to Virginia Code subsection 2.2-3711A.7 for the purpose of consultation with legal counsel pertaining to actual or probable litigation, where such consultation in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the city, specifically regarding Michael A. Moore versus City of Portsmouth, Portsmouth Circuit Court case numbers 19003403, 19003277, and 19004481, and B, pursuant to Virginia Code subsection 2.2-3711A.3, for the purpose of discussing the acquisition and/or disposition of real property, where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, specifically regarding properties owned by Greater Portsmouth Development Corporation, and C, pursuant to Virginia Code subsection 2.2-3711A.6, for the purpose of discussing or considering of the investment of public funds where competition or bargaining is involved, where, if publicly initially, the financial interests of the city would be adversely affected, specifically regarding ownership and maintenance of cemeteries.
Sir, second.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Battle?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Glover?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucas-Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Moody is absent. Ms. Simmons?
Yes.
Mayor Rowe?
Yes. Before we go, I think Councilman Moody had surgery, and that's why he's not here.
Yes, sir.
We're in closed session.